Hi, I'm Laci. My sister laughed when I said I was starting a business in my garage. She told an entire room I was selling soap bars and dreams. But now, she's begging me for 15 million to save the company she built on stolen code. Mine. How did we get here? And why did my own mother sign the paper that erased me? What would you do if your family praised the person who betrayed you and pretended you didn't exist? What time are you watching this? Are you on your couch, at work, or lying awake like I used to be, wondering if you ever truly belonged? Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I want to hear your story too. The mashed potatoes had gone cold by the time I said it. I'm resigning, I told them, my voice steady, not stiff. I'm launching my own company. The silence was instant. No chewing, no clinking glasses, just a pause that filled the room with something heavier than disapproval. Calculation. Darlie was the first to speak. She didn't even look up from her wine. You're giving up 6 figures to make soap in a garage? Dad chuckled under his breath like he wasn't trying to laugh. You're serious? Mom's attempt at softness was paper thin. But you've built such a promising path, sweetheart. Why throw that away? I didn't answer. I just kept my back straight and my jaw locked. Darlie leaned back in her chair, crossed one leg over the other like she was hosting a panel. This is just like your photography phase, she said to the room, not to me. Remember that? She bought a fancy camera, took pictures of the neighbor's dog, then gave up in 2 months. They laughed. Even Dad, who never laughed during dinner. I stared at my plate. My appetite was long gone, replaced by a pressure behind my ribs. I wanted to say something clever, something clean. But all I managed was stillness. They kept talking over me, around me. The words were familiar, unrealistic, impulsive. Why can't you just, each one like a thin needle, not enough to bleed, but enough to bruise? What none of them knew was that I'd already registered the business. EcoRoot wasn't an idea anymore. It had a logo, a provisional patent, and 3 local vendors on contract. But if they couldn't see it, I wouldn't waste breath trying to explain. 2 weeks ago, at Darlie's latest gala, she stood on stage during a panel Q&A and said, "Some people start from nothing. My sister? She starts from less than nothing. Soap bars and dreams." The audience laughed. I was backstage helping with logistics. My name wasn't on the program. She knew I was there. After dinner, I pushed back my chair without a word. Mom called my name, but I kept walking. Past the foyer, down the front steps, into the darkness of our quiet street. In my car, I didn't cry. I didn't curse. I opened my notes app and typed, Phase 1, EcoRoot. They laughed. That was fine. They wouldn't be laughing for long. And that's when the plan to reclaim my voice began. The video arrived on a Monday morning, right before I opened my first email, sent by a former colleague from a job I barely remembered caring about. No caption. Just a link and a winking emoji. I almost didn't click, but I did. It was a clip from the gala. Darlie on stage, answering a question about entrepreneurship. My sister's building something, she said with that performative smile. In a garage, soap bars and shipping dreams. I love her ambition. The room had laughed. Again. But this time, the internet didn't. The comments rolled in like a current breaking against a wall. She's what's wrong with women in power. Shaming someone for starting small? That's not leadership. Darlie's name trended for the wrong reason. She always said bad press was better than no press until she had both. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I saved the video, renamed the file, receipts. That night, I was reheating leftovers when my phone buzzed again. Another message. This one from an old friend who hadn't spoken to me since high school graduation. You need to see this. Attached was a screenshot. It was our family group chat. I'd muted it long ago, but apparently I was still very much the topic. Susan, Mom, had sent a meme of a woman drowning in sticky notes. Darlie responded, Laci's version of CEO, crafts, egos, and overdue orders. Another message. She should be thankful we even invite her. I didn't blink. I read it once, then twice. Then I pressed and held the group name. Leave chat. Block notifications. Archive thread. Done. 16 years ago, I taught Darlie how to ride a bike. When she fell, she cried so loud the neighbors looked out their windows. I carried her home on my back while she accused me of pushing her. I never told anyone, not even Mom. I let her cry until she stopped, until we were both out of breath. Now I stood in front of my whiteboard, the one that still smelled faintly like dry erase markers and caffeine. I drew a new box under my strategic flow. Phase 2, take control, not revenge, not yet, just clarity. Before I went to bed, I sent the gala video to my mother. No message, no punctuation, just the truth, raw and uncaptioned. Let her decide what's more embarrassing, my garage or her silence. When the email came from the PBS affiliate, I stared at it for a full minute before I opened it. They were doing a short feature called Texas Women in Innovation. They wanted to interview me in my workspace, highlight the roots of EcoRoot, and, if possible, include a voice from someone who had influenced me. I didn't hesitate. I forwarded the message to my mother with a short note. "They'd love to hear from you," she responded 2 hours later. "I think it might be better if I sit this one out. It could make Darlie uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. Not hurt, not excluded, just unsettled. That was always her priority. Smooth edges. Nothing too sharp, nothing too honest. I didn't reply. 1 year ago, for her birthday, I gave her something I had poured time and thought into, a watercolor portrait of our old front porch. I'd commissioned it from a local artist based on a faded Polaroid from the 80s, the one where she was barefoot, hair in curlers, holding toddler Darlie on her hip, her real self, unfiltered, untouched, smiling like the world hadn't made her bitter yet. She opened it with that smile she used for regifting candles. "Oh, it's lovely, so unique." Her voice flatlined somewhere around the word unique. 2 days later, I stopped by to drop off a check for her lawn guy. That's when I saw it, still in the wrapping, face down in the trash, next to a half-eaten slice of carrot cake. I didn't bring it up. I didn't ask. I just took it back with me, slid it behind a shelf in my garage. It sat there for months, leaning against a wall covered in supply chain diagrams and mood boards. That night, after the email and her gentle rejection, I pulled it out again. The frame was cracked at the corner, but the colors were still warm. Soft golds, weathered wood tones, honest light. I hung it above my whiteboard, right across from the EcoRoot dashboard screen. I didn't do it to remember her. I did it to remember myself, the girl who still believed the gift mattered. Growing up, I was always the almost chosen for the spelling bee, almost asked to prom, almost recognized at family dinners. Every time I reached, the goalposts moved. Science fairs, solo recitals, perfect report cards. They'd clap, then pivot the conversation back to Darlie's internship, Darlie's promotion, Darlie's latest feature in whatever tech magazine Dad read aloud over brunch. I spent so long waiting for someone to say, "You did good, Laci." Instead, I got silence, which somehow hurt more than a no. Now, standing in my own workspace, surrounded by the bones of the thing I built from scratch, I whispered it to myself. I'm not a disappointment. I'm just inconvenient to their narrative. A notification lit up my phone. It was from the PBS producer. "We'd love to include a shot of your family home, unless that's too painful." I didn't answer right away. I wasn't afraid of showing my past. I was afraid it might still look exactly the same. I hadn't been inside the house in nearly 6 months, and yet nothing had changed. The same faded rug, the faint scent of lemon cleaner clinging to the stairs, the same hollow quiet that used to feel like safety. I came to drop off a notarized copy of Dad's healthcare directive, something Darlie should have handled but didn't. Surprise, surprise. I wasn't planning to linger. I told myself I'd just leave the envelope in the entryway and go. But on my way out, something tugged at me. I turned toward the living room, toward the wall, where my painting used to hang. Gone. In its place, a digital photo frame. Thin, shiny, too sleek for the house it lived in. The screen glowed softly as I stepped closer. The image changed every few seconds. Darlie giving a TED Talk. Darlie at a ribbon cutting. Darlie shaking hands with some senator I couldn't name. I waited to see if any childhood pictures might show up. Just one. Something blurry and honest. Nothing came. Susan entered without knocking, still wearing that dusty blue sweater she always said she'd throw away, but never did. "Oh, I didn't hear you come in. I didn't plan to stay." She followed my eyes to the screen. Darlie got it for us. Isn't it beautiful? It sinks to the cloud. So modern. So modern, I echoed and forced a smile. She didn't ask what I was staring at. She never did. That evening, I stood backstage at the South by Southwest Innovation Gala, trying not to crush my palms against the award I was about to receive. The ballroom pulsed with energy, voices, flashes, that subtle hum of curated admiration. 3 chairs were reserved in the front row. Dennis Cole, Susan Cole, Darlie Cole. All 3 remained empty. I didn't expect them to show. Not really. But some part of me had hoped one would walk through those gilded doors, even just for a moment. When they called my name, I walked onto the stage with a practiced grace. I delivered my speech. I smiled for the cameras. I accepted the applause. But my eyes scanned the crowd long after the lights dimmed, searching for someone who was never coming. Backstage, a journalist caught up with me while I was wiping lipstick off a glass of untouched champagne. "Who are you thanking tonight?" she asked, recorder already blinking. I took a breath that didn't quite reach my lungs. Held it. "I used to thank the ones who raised me," I said. Then I looked her square in the eye. "Now I thank the woman who survived them." The champagne hadn't even gone flat before she posted the photos. A carousel. 6 photos. Darlie with her arm around some private equity bro. Darlie with a glass raised mid-laugh. Darlie with a caption that read, "Celebrating real impact tonight. Grateful for those who lead with vision." Posted at 7:42 p.m. The exact moment I stepped on stage to accept my award. I didn't throw my phone. I didn't even flinch. I just closed the app and opened Excel. Cold math always felt safer than warm lies. 3 days later, I met Leo Stanton at a quiet cafe in East Austin. He was my old mentor from my Valor Group days. Still wore the same jacket, still smiled like he didn't owe anyone anything. We talked about nothing for 15 minutes. Weather, market trends, the price of olive oil, before I said it. "Has Darlie reached out to you recently?" He paused, then leaned in, voice low. "She pitched me last week. Said CoreTrack just needed a capital bridge. Same buzzwords she used 10 years ago. Same pitch, same desperation." I swallowed that like bad coffee. Bitter, familiar, lingering. "She asked me too," I said. "Offered me equity I didn't ask for." Leo exhaled through his nose. "She's not looking for partners. She's looking for pawns." That one landed. When I got home, I flicked on the garage light. My whiteboard glared back at me. A single name sat in the center. Darlie. Half erased, not enough. I picked up the eraser and finished the job. Then I started a new map. Arrows, boxes, scenarios. At the top in black marker. If not me, then who? I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. Later that night, Leo sent me one more message. "You're not her first, but you can be the last." For once, I wasn't the pawn. I was holding the board. I reread Leo's text while stirring the cream into my coffee. The message was short, but it carried more weight than anything my family had said in years. "You're not her first, but you can be the last." The word last stuck. Not in a vengeful way, but in a way that tasted like freedom. Like choice. I printed it out and pinned it beneath a tab on my office whiteboard labeled Patterns. The ink looked like a signature. I didn't need another one of those. That same afternoon, while finalizing EcoRoot's Q2 filings, I hit a snag. A legal rep flagged a tie to a dormant clause in my father's estate trust. I didn't think much of it. Bureaucratic dust. Until I saw it. My name wasn't missing from the legacy plan. It was present and underlined. Beside the words, non-successor, financial independence established. Darlie's entry, natural inheritor and aligned strategic asset. The ink wasn't even faded. I didn't speak. I didn't shout. I copied the clause into a PDF, highlighted it, and printed 3 versions. 16 years ago, Dad told me, "You've always been different. That's admirable." I used to replay that compliment in my head when I felt small. Now I knew better. He meant, "You've always been out of step. That makes you disposable." The trust fund I never asked for. The support I never received. The praise that always sounded rehearsed. I booked a meeting with a family attorney. Her office smelled like paper and quiet power. She was younger than I expected, which worked in my favor. "I want a legal disassociation clause," I said. She frowned. From? Cole Legacy Holdings. Their assets, their name, their network. I want no overlap with EcoRoot or myself, present or future. She leaned back. You'll lose any claim, no fallback, no inheritance. Are you sure? I nodded once. If I was meant to inherit, I wouldn't have had to build everything from scratch. She slid the form across the desk. I signed. The pen didn't tremble. Back at my apartment, I wrote a single line on the envelope in thick, permanent Sharpie. You erased me in ink. I'm returning the favor. In bold. The next morning, I dropped the envelope into a blue mailbox on 12th Street. The metal clanged shut like a gavel. Legacy isn't about what you inherit, it's about what you refuse to become. The room was colder than usual, or maybe it was just me. My fingers hovered over a file cabinet in EcoRoot's private archive, searching for clarity and accidentally finding confirmation. The document was signed in blue ink. My mother's name, neat, round handwriting, at the bottom of a page labeled Consent for Removal of Beneficiary, Laci Cole. There was a small note scribbled beneath. Laci is not aligned with the long-term vision of the family. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I just sat on the metal stool, the paper trembling slightly in my grip. I hadn't expected love anymore, but alignment, that was math. A decision, a calculated excision. I whispered to no one. Even the softest betrayal cuts deepest. Later that evening, an audit report from one of my developers slid into my inbox. Routine until it wasn't. Buried in the analysis, a set of CoreTrack's code structures showing an uncanny resemblance to an old sandbox module I'd written. Same indentation quirks, same logical progression, same signature bug. Something only I would be sloppy enough to leave. Nested inside a comment string, //LMC_varhandler_rev, 2-3 years ago, I had built it on a lonely Friday night, fueled by Red Bull and spite. I never published it, never licensed it, but I saved it. I loaded the file beside Darlie's code. My name, right there, woven into a product she'd pitched as hers. My breath slowed, not with shock, with certainty. The next morning, I walked into EcoRoot's boardroom. No blazer, no pitch deck, just my laptop and fax. I connected to the projector, pulled up the side-by-side files, and let silence settle over the room before I spoke. She didn't just humiliate me, she didn't just erase me, she stole from me. I looked at every member of my leadership team. And I'm not negotiating with thieves. There were no gasps, just stillness, quiet, electrified stillness. When the meeting ended, I walked back to my office and printed out an email from Darlie. Subject: potential collaboration. Her tone was syrupy, professional, fake. I folded it once and slid it into the press brief folder. I was never meant to expose her. But the truth wrote itself in lines of code. The boardroom was silent except for the soft whir of the projector fan. Max stood next to me, arms crossed tight, eyes locked on the screen. Slide 1, I said. Lines of code lit up the screen. Syntax, variables, annotations. I knew it by heart. The nested logic loops. The dummy flags I'd built as failsafes. Then I advanced to slide 2. CoreTrack's most recent update, identical, line for line. Including the intentional bug I'd buried during beta testing, and my initials, buried deep in a function name no one was supposed to touch. The room didn't erupt. No one gasped. That would have been too easy. But I saw it in the way their shoulders shifted, the way one board member tilted his head, the way Max's jaw clenched, like he wanted to say something but knew I didn't need him to. Slide 3, I said. Metadata logs, GitHub timestamps, file lineage, dates, names, ownership, unassailable. One board member cleared his throat. Is this official? I nodded. It's enough to bankrupt them in court, but I'm not here to sue. A pause. Another shift. Someone else asked, Then what are you proposing? I looked them all in the eye. We acquire CoreTrack immediately, before their next quarterly call, before the story leaks. One woman raised an eyebrow. The optics, this is your sister. I didn't blink. We can't afford to look afraid of power just because it wears a familiar face. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it didn't have to be. I left the room without shaking hands. Later that evening, Darlie appeared on the screen during our scheduled video call. Her hair was pulled back, eyes puffy behind expensive glasses. She tried to smile. failed. Laci, no, I said. You don't get to narrate this. She closed her mouth. You'll step down, I continued. You'll disappear for 6 months. Let us clean up the mess. I'll make sure the press says it was a transition of vision, not collapse. She nodded once. That was all. I didn't gloat. That wasn't the win. The win came later, when I returned to my office. The lights were off. The city outside glowed gold and indifferent. On my desk sat the old Polaroid Mom had thrown away. The one with her and Darlie on the porch. The one I'd framed and kept, not out of sentiment, but out of proof. I pinned it to the wall above my desk. The system that erased me just gave me its keys. Now I get to rebuild it. My way. The press conference lasted exactly 23 minutes. No drama, no questions about Darlie, just clean, careful words about acquisition, future strategy, and quiet stability. I spoke in complete sentences and wore a smile I didn't owe anyone. When it ended, I returned to my office, peeled off my blazer, and kicked off the heels that had been digging into my toes since 7 a.m. A cream envelope sat neatly on my desk. It had no return address. I didn't need one. Inside, a single note, folded twice. I know what I cost you, I know what I was. I'm not asking to be forgiven, just don't erase me. Let the name stay on the wall. I'm not proud, but I'm not pretending anymore. I sat with it for a while. Let the words breathe around me. The request wasn't manipulative. It wasn't packaged in guilt. It was raw. It was her. Later that night, I walked alone into what used to be CoreTrack's boardroom. They hadn't touched the wall yet. Her name was still there, etched in silver beneath the soft glow of recessed lights. Darlie Cole, co-founder. I reached out and ran my fingers along the edge of the metal. It was smooth, polished, permanent. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I thought about every time my name had been omitted. Every event, every article, every dinner table conversation where I was present but not visible. I thought about how power wasn't about silencing others. It was about choosing when not to. I left her name, not for her, for me. Back at home, I rewrote EcoRoot's mission statement on my office whiteboard. To be what I never had, proof that respect is earned, not demanded. The old Polaroid still sat on the shelf, the one Mom had thrown away and I had rescued. I slid it into a frame. Not because I'd made peace with the past, but because I refused to let it be rewritten without me. Some scars you don't cover. You frame them, because survival isn't about erasure. It's about authorship. Sometimes the loudest victories aren't the ones people cheer for. They're the quiet ones, the ones where you choose integrity over ego, where you rebuild not to impress, but to heal. I used to think belonging meant being accepted by the people who raised you. Now I know it means standing firm in who you are, even if that means standing alone. And if you've ever felt erased, overlooked, or underestimated, let this be your reminder. You are not invisible. You're just not in the room that sees you yet. What would you do if your own family tried to write you out of your own story? Drop a comment below. Maybe tell me what state you're watching from, or just hit 1 if this story hit close to home. And hey, if this story moved you, challenged you, or even made you pause, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more true stories that matter. Because sometimes, healing starts with someone else saying, "I've been there too."